Hello, my friend. Welcome to Speak with Power podcast. I'm Natasha Bazilevich, a business trainer, speaker, and public speaking coach. I teach entrepreneurs and executives all over the world to build confidence, craft their clear message, and deliver it with power. Would you love to master your presentation skills, learn how to speak with persuasion, and get inspiration from powerful speakers all around the globe? Then stay tuned. And don't forget to subscribe. Welcome back to Speak with Power, my dear friends. Today, I want to introduce my new guest to you, Craig Meriwether. Craig is a mindset coach and clinical hypnotherapist, helping people eliminate negative emotions and trauma so they can reach their full potential. Welcome, Craig.
Natasha, thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to a really great conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for coming to the show. And I am intrigued by hypnotherapist. I know some of them, but not many. And maybe I had like one conversation out of my 300 something episodes with a hypnotherapist. So I'm excited really to hear what you get to share with us, because, well, you know, this is a public speaking space. This is a space for people who want to speak with power and with confidence. And a lot of people don't have that confidence. They have anxiety, they have fears. And that's why we would love to hear from you. But first of all, why did you decide to go in this field of hypnotherapy?
Oh, okay. Well, the kind of short story of it all is I struggled a lot myself with anxiety and depression. Started around my teenage years. So this is back in the 1980s. They didn't have the anti-anxiety and depression drugs, you know, the hardcore stuff for people with schizophrenia and things like that. But the like SSRI drugs, Prozac, things like that, that didn't come out to the mid 90s, late 90s or so. And so in the 80s, you kind of almost just kind of grin and bear it. There's talk therapy, which could be helpful. And then whatever book you could find at the bookstore or the library. But as a teenager, you know, you're not really going to probably go to talk therapy or even mention that you're struggling with this stuff. And, you know, in the 90s, it just became this, you know, way of being. This is who I am, or so I thought. And it was really with the birth of my son in the year 2000 that I really started to think I need to get my life together. My mother struggled with depression, suicidal thoughts. I did. You know, so this is either a mirroring of in the home, so I'm just picking up what I'm seeing around me, or this is potentially a genetic thing. And either way, my son's kind of going to be in a little bit of trouble because either it's genetic or it's mirroring, and I'm going to, you know, it's going to be one or the other. And so I decided I really needed to get my act together, because if my son was going to struggle with it, then I wanted to help. I wanted to be able to show him some tools that he could use. And this is the year 2000. The internet's out by now. You know, of course, lots of different books and information since over the last 20 years or so. And I really started researching, looking at the books, looking at the information on the internet, and trying these techniques and strategies to deal with the anxiety and depression. And yeah, there's a lot of false starts and a lot of trial and error and a lot of what's going to work for me. But after some time, after maybe even a couple of years of back and forth, on and off, trying to work on it, I realized one day I woke up and I didn't feel depressed anymore. I didn't feel that anxiety. It's sort of like I'd been wearing this heavy coat and I somehow was able to take it off. And what I realized is I had this toolbox full of tools, and I started down the road of what does one do with this information. So I actually ended up in a book contest, kind of just a writing contest, and wrote a book about depression, and did pretty well in the contest. And that kind of moved me forward into talking about it on podcasts. We're just getting going at that point, and of course some radio shows and things. And I got an opportunity to actually work with one of the people I had worked with myself, and who was a hypnotherapist. And that was one of the modalities I used to help myself. Because what's extraordinary about hypnotherapy is that you can work with your own subconscious mind. I'm not here to fix you or fix anybody. Uh, Hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix you. You're going to fix yourself. And that's what I find so powerful about this. I was able to help myself. One of the best things I did was using hypnotherapy. I got the opportunity to kind of work with somebody and talk to them about it. And I got just inspired to want to do the work myself, and ended up being able to go to a great training academy called the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. It's great school, 500 hours of hypnotherapy training, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's extraordinary training. People come from around the country, around the world to this school. And I was able to train there. And ever since, I've just been doing this work, and I've been having an extraordinary time just helping other people do the healing work themselves.
So people can do it by themselves, right? Sometimes. I mean, of course, it's.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's certainly a lot of this work, self-hypnosis. There's certainly recordings and even nowadays things on YouTube and Spotify that you can listen to, apps you can download. I think when you're needing to maybe work with somebody who can help facilitate some of the deeper work is when maybe there's some deep unconscious issues going on, maybe some deep hurt that happened in childhood. But it's also nice when maybe you just are feeling stuck, and what a hypnotherapist can help do is just kind of guide down the path. Sometimes certain phrases, certain words that somebody may talk about will spur, oh, I see what the issue is, and you can go down a certain road, certain path. The issue with public speaking, of course, is like you mentioned in the introduction, is there's so many people feel anxious about it, and isn't it
Mhm.
the study is more people fear speaking in public than death, and so it's an extraordinary fear that a lot of people struggle with. And unfortunately, in terms of business, in terms of being an entrepreneur, in terms of the career a lot of people have, there are opportunities to speak in public that will help benefit their career, their business.
Mhm.
And if you're feeling anxious about that, maybe you won't go for it. And you maybe there goes the promotion, there goes meeting somebody that may want to invest in your company, or you might meet the next vice president of your company. And so if you're unwilling to maybe even go public speaking, and sometimes this goes so far as maybe a networking event with a bunch of strangers, maybe you don't know anybody and you're feeling hesitant to want to do that. And really, what this anxious feeling is a warning signal from your brain that there's danger. This doesn't feel safe. Now, is it real? Is it imagined? Is it real danger? Not, probably not. It's not like a natural disaster. It's not like fires coming towards your house, or you're walking out in nature and there's a rattlesnake in the trail, or bears coming at you like we've seen on some of those crazy YouTube videos. It's not danger in the terms of you're going to get physically injured, like maybe there's a
Mhm.
fight in the street, but your subconscious mind thinks you're in danger. It could be the fact that maybe back in the sixth grade, maybe back in junior high school, you gave a history report up in front of the class and it didn't go very well.
Mhm.
Uh, Maybe you stammered, maybe you stuttered, maybe you forgot what you're supposed to say, maybe your pictures were upside down. And the kids laugh. That's what kids do. They're maybe not so socially and cognizant of what's happening, and so they laugh, and you feel bad. You're embarrassed. You're humiliated. Maybe the teacher was pretty rough on you because it went so poorly. You got a bad grade, and now this event in your life that probably kind of embarrassing, humiliating, fear inducing, maybe
Mhm.
kind of a little traumatic, having everybody laugh at you if that was the situation. And so this registers in your subconscious mind as a dangerous event. You don't want to experience that again. Your subconscious mind is for you. It's not against you. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's for your happiness and success. It's for your safety and protection. It's for survival. And so if there's a file, say in this filing cabinet of your subconscious mind, and it registers that this event you're going to go to, maybe you have to speak at a conference, or you're in charge of the big meeting on Friday, and you have to give the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe you need to meet some investors. Maybe it's
Mhm.
just an interview. You're going to interview somebody for a job at your business, and that may seem dangerous because it sort of looks like that old event.
Mhm.
Just slightly. Obviously, you're not in front of a classroom full of kids giving a history report, but it's close enough So this could be dangerous. Sort of like the snake. There are wonderful snakes out there that are actually good for your garden and aren't harmful. And the snake people love to pick them up and have them slither all around them, and it's fine. But out in the wilderness, if you pick up that snake moving in the grass, you're going to move away from it. You don't know if it's dangerous or not. So your instinct is to move away. And
Mm.
same with this situation. Is it really, a physical threat to give that speech or go to the networking event? Not really. It's not going to harm you physically, but it's close enough to that event, maybe back in high school or junior high, that it was embarrassing and humiliating. That caused pain, that caused hurt, and you don't want to experience it again. Now, if that information is stored within your subconscious mind, your subconscious mind is going to try and protect you from that. And if you're in a building and somebody pulls the fire alarm, the sirens go off, the strobe lights go off, warning everybody in the building that there's danger. You need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system. Instead of sirens, we have feelings. When your mind picks up danger in your external environment, real or imagined, it's going to turn on the feeling state of anxiety or fear, maybe anger, overwhelm, or worry. Your subconscious mind, it's running your immune system, it's running your digestive system, it's beating your heart, breathing your lungs, doing all these things automatically, growing your hair, growing your fingernails. Don't have to think about it, don't have to worry about it. It's holding on to those habits of, walking and tying your shoes and zipping up your jacket and riding a bicycle, things we don't have to think about. But it's also there to protect you and keep you safe. That's its main job. And if it senses any sort of danger, it's going to warn you by turning on the anxiety. If you do not heed that warning, it's going to turn up the volume. Just like if somebody's a manager, facilities manager, and they're doing fire alarm tests and nobody, reacts to the fire alarm, what they're going to do? They're going to turn up the volume. And,
Mhm.
and so it really registers that there's danger, you need to get out. Your body's going to do the same thing. The other big issue with this is what you practice, you get better at.
Mhm.
You can literally, over the years, get really good at being anxious around public speaking or going to a networking event or being in charge of the big meeting on Friday. And so if you're practicing all this, if you're getting really good at it, you can literally wire that into your brain, into your system. This subconscious mind, again, while it's for you, is for your safety. It can start maybe preventing you from moving forward in your business, in your career, and prevent the beneficial elements of that, like speaking in front of public and promoting your business.
Mhm.
And you may just feel like you want to hide. That's a big part of the subconscious mind, keeping you safe. The conscious mind, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind that creates your goals, the plans to achieve your goals, plans for your day, plans for your week, your 5-year plan, and the willpower to go achieve those plans. Now, what neuroscience says is conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind makes up 95% of mind. So whenever there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. So you can sit there and logically, maybe you're at your desk, maybe you're at home, and you're thinking, I should go to this meeting, or I should go give this presentation to promote my business or promote my career. Go to this networking event. Logically, that makes a lot of sense. And you can
Mhm.
analyze it to that. It's like I have 100 pros and only one con. And the one con is it makes me feel anxious. And that 95% emotional part of mine will override the 5% logical mind. You know, whenever there's conflict between the logical mind, the emotional mind wins every time. There are ways of dealing with anxiety. There are ways of learning to turn off the stress response and recalibrate your nervous system. But it's like anything. What you do the most, what you practice the most, you're going to get better at. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. We know
Mhm.
this from learning how to play the piano or learning how to ride a bicycle or learning martial arts or dance or learning a foreign language, learning to walk as a little kid.
Mhm.
What you
Mhm.
do, you get better at. So if you're practicing fearing public speaking or getting anxious going to a networking event, or even, being anxious about giving the presentation at the big meeting, you're just going to get really good at being anxious and afraid of doing that.
Hmm. Okay, so this is why you provide hypnotherapy, is to
Hmm.
actually help people get rid of this anxiety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like, okay, and we'll get maybe to some more practical steps, but have you noticed in your experience, have there been any negative effects, side effects, or results of hypnotherapy?
No, it because you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in terms of negative side effects, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, you could maybe, help somebody become more anxious. I don't know why you want to do that, though. Uh, but in terms of somebody coming in seeking help, uh, there may be some trauma that needs to be resolved, but this is done in a safe way, a gentle way. Now, having said that, you obviously need to be working with somebody who knows what they're doing and is a highly trained professional in doing therapeutic hypnosis. The unfortunate thing about uh, this modality is it's really easy to just print out a certificate and call yourself a hypnotherapist after a handful of hours of video training. And a
Mm.
lot of people do that. They'll do 20 hours of a video course and call themselves a hypnotherapist. And that's scary because sometimes you do run into deep-seated issues that need to be resolved. A trained professional in hypnotherapy can resolve that and very safely, very gently, and kind of quickly. You're allowed to do that. You have the
Mm.
right to do that, but you really need to make sure who you're working with knows what they're doing, and really make sure you find out what their training is. What I've noticed in a lot of websites for hypnotherapists, they won't tell you what their training is. And that's a big red flag to me. I put it all over my website. Here's my training. Here's what sets me apart from other people. And so
Mm.
if you see anybody that was trained at the Hypnotherapy Academy of America, that's a green light right there. But also, that's not the only place, of course. And if you done university training or other schools or other courses, of course, but really make sure you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. In terms of the actual work, there's no bad side effects, but make sure the person you're working with, knows what they're doing.
Like you
Uh,
trust them. Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, and you trust them, and you trust their training. That's the biggest takeaway I think from that.
Hmm. Because why I'm asking this, there's so many movies with
Hmm.
people who are hypnotherapists,
Um,
and it's just so scary because they put you into
yeah,
that trance or whatever that
I
state, and then they
know,
can do whatever they want to you, or they program you
I
and then
know.
manipulate.
I know, and that's
So.
frustrating because it's really just to move a point forward. You can't hypnotize Jason Bourne to assassinate the Prime Minister of England. It's just it doesn't work that way. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. And the evidence of this is that smoking cessation, one of the things that hypnotherapy is really famous for, helping people to quit smoking, it's not a 100% guarantee because you can't make somebody do something they don't want to do. And some people come to a hypnotherapist to quit smoking because their spouse wants them to quit. Yes, it's good for their health. It's certainly good for the pocketbook, but they like smoking. They don't want to quit smoking. They just as soon
Mm.
smoke in the garage. And so they're not going to quit. Why? Because I can't make them. No hypnotherapist can make them quit smoking. If I was able to make people do whatever they wanted to
Mm.
do, I'd be able to charge $1,000 a session, but that's not the way it works. And the other issue around therapeutic hypnosis is that triggers a lot of people are those entertainment shows in Las Vegas or Atlantic City or in comedy clubs, and
Mhm.
they see the videos or they actually go to a show and say, "Oh, I'm not going to a hypnotherapist. They're going to make me sing like Elvis Presley and sing
Mhm.
goofy songs or dance like Michael Jackson or pretend I'm Beyonce or something." And again, that's not the way that works. The reason those people are up there having a good time, having fun, singing like Elvis Presley, pretending they're on a roller coaster, whatever the gag is because they want to be up there. They literally volunteered to be up on that stage. Not only did they buy a ticket to the show, they sat down on their seat, The hypnotist comes out, hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Let's have some fun. Who wants to get up on stage and have a really amazing night? A bunch of people raise their hands. Now, who's he going to pick? Is he going to pick the people who are not raising their hands, who don't want to be up there? Or is he going to pick the people who are really excited and really enthusiastic about being up on stage and acting foolish? He's going to pick the people who are excited because, of course, they're going to do well in the show because they want to do well in the show. And then they go up on stage and then they sit in the seat and they say, oh, and what's your name? Where are you from? And do you want to go into hypnosis and have a great time and have a really amazing video to show your friends afterwards? Like, yes, I want to do that. They say yes like 7 times before this, guy makes them, sing like Elvis Presley or dance like Michael Jackson or whatever the thing is. And
Mm.
so, and this comes back to the point of you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. The reason that show's fun and the reason why it's funny, the reason why they have a great video to show on Instagram and TikTok is because they're extroverts, they're exhibitionists. They want to be funny in front of their friends. They want to do that. So what are the chances you're going to heal if you want to heal? What if you want to get rid of that anxiety around public speaking? What if you want to get rid of that anxiety about showing up at a networking event and giving your elevator pitch over and over and over again? What are the chances that you're going to be able to do that? That's how powerful you are. And so it's unfortunate with the movies and the TV shows and the Las Vegas shows. It's really given this modality a bad rap. I almost wish that they'd called it something else.
Mm.
But really, the history of this is not so dark as you might see in the movies. In fact, the word hypnosis comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who is the Greek god of sleep. And back in the 1850s, there was a doctor in England by the name of Dr. James Bard. And, back in the 1850s, there's uh, no fancy hospitals, there's no fancy anesthesia. If you're having your leg amputated, you're biting down on a stick. You're getting a blow to the head to knock you unconscious. And so what Dr. James Bard started doing is using a deep, deep trance state, putting people so far under into this deep trance that it'll look like they're in a coma. And then he could do amputations. He could cut people open and take out tumors and sew them up. He could deal with war injuries and all that kind of stuff. Now, he certainly didn't invent the trance state. Certainly thousands upon thousands of years ago in Egypt and over in India and South America and Aboriginals of Australia, they were using trance in their spiritual work, their healing work, thousands upon thousands of years ago. But in 1850, Dr. James Bard started using his trance state to put people into this coma-like sleep, needing a word to describe it to his colleagues, to write about it in articles, journal articles way back when. He decided to name this trance state after the Greek god of sleep. And so he called it hypnosis. And since then, over the last 170 years or so, this state of trance has grown to encompass all sorts of altered states of consciousness. And from a very light trance state all the way to the deep trance state, they're still using the what they now call it the ESDEL state, that coma-like state in surgery. If you're allergic to the anesthesia, they'll use a hypnotherapist to put you down into a deep trance state so they can do surgery on you without any sort of anesthesia. You can watch videos on YouTube of people at the dentist getting root canals using only hypnosis, because maybe they're allergic to the Novocaine or the lidocaine, whatever they're using. And
So
so this is a very powerful tool, but unfortunately has nothing to do with the movies and TV.
good. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We covered that. So now let's get into some practical steps.
Mm.
We talked about how people have a lot of anxiety around public speaking. And I know that you have ideas how to help people
Mm.
program themselves for confidence. So how
Yeah.
do they do that?
Well, one of the best ways to do it, and this may sound a little out there, but one of the best ways to program yourself for confidence is just to pretend. Now, that may seem a little unusual piece of advice, uh, but the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so this is most noticeable when somebody's having a nightmare. Maybe you've had that experience, Natasha, or some of your listeners probably have. And it doesn't matter how crazy or how ridiculous or how stupid this dream is. It could be like a gigantic cheeseburger and his two hot dog friends are chasing you down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. but your mind thinks you're in danger. And it doesn't matter how silly it is. Your mind thinks you're under threat, you're under attack. And even in deep sleep, it'll change your brain chemistry, start turning on the adrenaline and the cortisol. Adrenaline, you probably heard the crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. That's now coursing through your bloodstream. 300% more blood is now moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight. 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of your legs to escape, all in deep sleep. You are literally changing your physiology through thought alone. So let's use that to our advantage. And even by pretending, you can change how you feel in your body, but also literally rewire your brain. Back in the 1990s, there was a research study that was done, and researchers wanted to watch the brain as it learned something new. This ability to watch the brain is actually relatively new, since probably the 80s and 90s, like MRIs and SPECT scans. Before that, all we knew about the brain is what we could tell from sociological studies and autopsies. And so the research that's been done over the last 40 years has been extraordinary because we can watch the brain in real time. And these researchers wanted to watch the brain as it learned something new. And so they picked piano, and they brought in a bunch of volunteers who didn't know how to play piano. And they showed them simple little scales and exercises that one would, little songs that you would teach a beginner. And they came into the lab and they practiced piano for 2 hours a day, every day for 7 days straight. They had a second group who came in and played piano, but they didn't learn anything. All they did was just plunk around on the piano, just randomly play stuff on the piano. They had a third group who was the control group. They didn't do anything. They didn't learn anything new. They didn't come in to learn piano. And when you're doing this kind of research, you want to compare and contrast. Here's a brain that doesn't do anything, doesn't learn anything. Here's a brain that's learning piano. What are the differences after 7 days? So they had a control group. But what's fascinating is they had a fourth group. And the fourth group only pretended to learn piano. So they brought them in, they showed them the simple little scales and exercise and little songs you learn as a beginner. But instead of sitting at the piano, they went over to the couch or the recliner, closed their eyes, and just pretended to play piano. At the end of the week, they watching everybody's brain. At the end of the week, they look at the control group. Nothing changed in their brain. Of course not. They're not learning anything new. They didn't do anything different. Nothing changed in their brain. No big mystery there. The group that actually played piano put their hands on the keys, worked the keys with their fingers, heard the music with their ears, read the sheet music with their eyes. They developed a new neural network in the part of the brain for music. Of course they did. Their brain is changing. They're learning something new. And so their brain is wiring in a different way, neurons connecting together in the part of the brain for music. Of course, I mean, again, no big mystery there. The group who just randomly went around the piano just playing nothing didn't change their brains at all either because they weren't learning anything. They weren't really doing anything. They're just kind of randomly playing around on the piano. So their brains didn't change. But what's interesting is the group who only pretended to play the piano. They never touched the piano. They never heard any music. They didn't read sheet music with their eyes.
They just imagined, right?
They just pretended. They just imagined. They just sat on the couch, closed their eyes, and pretended using their imagination to play piano. They developed the same neural network in the same part of the brain as those who actually practiced the piano. Their brains look like they were piano players, even though they never touched them, because they pretended. You can literally rewire your brain in less than a week just by pretending. Some of your listeners may remember the Olympics back in the 70s. And the Soviet Union was very dominant in gymnastics back then. There was Nania Comaneci and all those superstars of the Soviet Union in gymnastics. And they were winning all the gold, the silver, and the bronze, and they were winning all the world championships. Nobody could figure out how they were so far more skilled at gymnastics, so dominant in gymnastics than any other country in the world. And in the late 70s, early 80s, some of the athletes and coaches of the gymnastics team started to defect. And what the world found out is that the Soviet Union gymnastics team was spending at least 50% of their time in mental rehearsal, is what they called it. And so what they would do is they would, obviously practice on the parallel bars or the on the mats and do their routine. But then they would sit on the couch or on the recliner and just practice in their minds, pretending that they're successfully doing their routine on the mat or doing the parallel bars, or maybe they're doing the dismount off the parallel bars over and over and over again, successfully completing the twists and the turns. And why we know that works now is because we realize through those research with the piano players, they were literally wiring that success into their brains.
Yeah.
That's why they're so far dominant in it. And so what's a little bit scary about this is, what if you're practicing failure?
Yes.
What if you're thinking about that event you have to go to and give a speech at, and you're saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to stammer, I'm going to stumble over my words, I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. People are going to laugh at me." Are you not then wiring failure into your brain? And so this is when I started off with saying, just pretend that you have the confidence, pretend you're doing it successfully. You can
Mm-hmm.
literally wire that success into your brain, into your body.
Mm.
And so that was probably the first step, and something you can just do on your own. Let's say you have a speech coming up, you have to give a presentation, and even if it's just a presentation at the meeting coming up, why don't you visualize yourself
Mm-hmm.
successfully doing the speech? Now, of course, you need to actually practice the speech as well. And you need to get up and maybe even in front of friends, practice the speech and feel comfortable with it. And unless you're a professional speaker and you can just maybe go out there and ad lib at the last minute because somebody couldn't make it or is sick or something. But if you don't feel confident, first off, practice over and over, not just once, and,
And
and not just right
prepare.
before
Yeah.
the speech.
Mm-hmm.
Spend weeks practicing for this,
Yep.
like you're an actor on the stage. Practice for this, and if you need a coach, find a coach, or maybe there's somebody in the local theater group who can help you. But practice, and then maybe as you're falling asleep, or you have a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, visualize yourself successfully giving that speech. Visualize the standing ovation you're going to get. Imagine what that's going to do for your confidence. Seeing yourself getting a standing ovation day after day after day, and then walk into that speech and see how you're going to do. But just by visualizing, you can literally start rewiring your brain. So
Mm-hmm.
pretending is probably one of the best things you could do.
Mm. Yeah. Well, when you say pretending, sometimes I understand it a little differently, but and as soon as you said like imagine and
Oh,
visualize,
imagine,
yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly what I would do. And if
yeah.
especially if that's an important speech and training, I remember I would be the night before. And with marathons, I know that Olympic
Mm.
marathons, they do the same thing. So that's
Oh, yeah.
also it's a very, very
Yeah.
legitimate technique to prepare for
There's
something important.
Yeah, right now when we're recording this, the Olympics are going on. I guarantee you, every single Olympic athlete is doing some mental rehearsal every day.
Yeah.
Probably every professional athlete. There's a wonderful story about Dennis Rodman. Some of your listeners probably remember him, a great basketball player back in the 90s, kind of out there because he had this kind of leopard pattern hair and was kind of an outlier, but an extraordinary talent, extraordinary
Mm-hmm.
athlete. And you would see him before a game. He's just wearing his sweats before a game, and he'd be listening to a Walkman. This is back in the 90s. You had a Walkman with a little cassette in your Walkman cassette player. And, he'd tell people he's listening to, empowering music, exciting music. But it came out later, what he was really listening to was his narration on how well he did against the team that they were playing that night. So after every game, he'd take his little tape recorder and he would narrate how awesome he was. I got the rebound off this guy, and then I shot this three-pointer, and then I stole the ball from this guy. He just narrate, even if they lost the game, he'd narrate how awesome he played against the
Mm.
team, file it away, and the next time his team played that same team, he would go through his file, pick out all the tapes he narrated for that team, and he'd listen to them, and
Interesting. Mm.
and that's how he got himself in state
Mm.
before he did a speech. And that's another great thing to do. Just, don't walk into a speech feeling nervous. Put yourself in state like an athlete does. Get yourself in the zone.
Mm. What are the ways? So one of the ways is to listen to yourself recording. What are other ways to
Well,
get in
yeah.
state?
Yeah, and then and that's a bit of an outlier kind of technique. And I don't know how well that's going to work for giving a speech, but it gives you an idea of like you're allowed to uh, increase your confidence in any way that is right for you. Now, in terms of putting yourself in state, there's all sorts of ways of doing it. Some people meditate. Some people need to get some exercise. Maybe do some jumping jacks before they go on stage. I'm sure a lot of your listeners, you probably too, Natasha, know Tony Robbins. And there was that documentary that came out about him a few years ago called I Am Not Your Guru. I believe it's on Netflix. And it's just a documentary about 1 week in the life of Tony Robbins. And he's doing one of those big, huge events at the arena. 10,000 people paying two, three, $4,000 to spend a week with Tony Robbins with 10,000 of their closest friends. And it just shows him through his day. He's with the backstage staff. He's dealing with the people who are in charge of the small breakout groups. He's talking to his accountant about the new business he's starting. He's dealing with the promoter about where they're going to go next year. He's a father. He's talking to his children. He's a husband. He's talking to his wife. But what's interesting is they show him right before he goes out on stage, and you see him put himself in state. This is Tony Robbins. This movie came out a few years ago. He's been doing this for 40 years. He started in the early 1980s. That Awaken the Giant Within book came out in the late 80s, early 1990s. He's been doing this work since the early 1980s. He's been doing it for 40 years, and he's still putting himself in state before he walks out on stage. And so his thing was I don't know, he'd spin around and pump his fists in the air, and there's the exciting music, and he runs out to the exciting music. That's what he does. He was also in the morning, you could see him doing the cold plunge and is jumping on a little trampoline for his adrenal glands and doing his meditation work. That's what he does to keep himself healthy, mentally, emotionally, and physically. But before he walked out on stage, to make sure he was the Tony Robbins that people have spent thousands of dollars to go see, he put himself in state, not unlike an actor before they went on stage or before an athlete before they walk out onto the mat or out on to the starting line. And so you're going to give a speech, do the same. Don't practice being nervous and thinking how awful this is going to be and how you're just wiring that into your brain. Practice being confident. You don't feel confident? Pretend you're confident. Use your imagination. There's some point in your life where you felt confident at something, even if it was back in the 6th grade and you won the 50-yard dash, or you gave the successful history report or something. You feel confident at something, even if it's tying your shoes. You feel confident tying your shoes. You feel confident riding a bicycle. There you go. Just use that. Start with that. And what does that feel to feel confident? It feels pretty good. I feel it in my chest, or I feel it in my gut, or I feel it in my head. And you can increase and strengthen. Is it a color? What color is confidence that you feel? Make it brighter, make it bigger. And now pretend you're giving that speech. Imagine yourself giving that speech. And then when it's time to give the speech, you're set for the 8 o'clock time slot. At 7:30, start preparing yourself. Put yourself in state. And whatever that means to you, there's all sorts of different ways. There was an example of Dennis Rodman and his recordings. Listening to how well he did against the team. There's Tony Robbins pumping his fists in the air. There's people who maybe want to meditate and be more quiet and more soft about it. You have to find a thing that works for you. There's 8 billion of us on this planet. We're all going to maybe find a different way to put ourselves in state. But like that gold medal winning athlete, like the actor, the great actor Ian McKellen, he was just doing King Lear in London. I guarantee you, he's putting himself in state after, I don't know what he is. He's got to be in his 70s, maybe even in his 80s at this point. After 60 years of acting, I guarantee you he was still putting himself in state every night before he went out on stage to perform King Lear. And so if you're going to give that speech and you're feeling uneasy about it, first off, practice. And also, as you're falling asleep, imagine yourself successfully giving that speech or that presentation or the running the meeting. Do it during the day. Do it at lunch hour. Find 5 minutes during your lunch hour when you can practice. Imagine yourself giving that speech, and then find a way to get yourself in the zone. Into your peak performance, like you're an athlete at the Olympics. Find a way to get yourself in the zone. Again, Tony Robbins jumps up and down and pumps his fists in the air and turns around and listens to the exciting music. If that's for you, do that. If you need more mellow music and to sit and close your eyes and breathe deeply, do that. And that's another great way of dealing with anxiety is just deep breathing.
Just deep breathing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you probably heard this before, and I know it's obnoxious and I know it's cliched to tell somebody struggling with anxiety to take a deep breath. It's really annoying, but it's probably one of the best things you could do for yourself. When we're stressed, we upper chest breathe. And so we're not getting all as much oxygen as we actually need because the lungs are huge. You can feel your rib cage, they're like 2 inches from your hip bones. The lungs are huge. But the rib cage is just for the heart and the lungs. The only thing protecting the vital organs of the abdomen are the muscles. So when you're stressed and you feel threatened, real
Mhm.
or imagined, you will tighten your stomach muscles. You'll tighten those abdominal muscles, waiting for the 1-2 punch. So you can't get that deep breath into the bottom of your lungs, flatten out the diaphragm and get the air all the way down there. So you just upper chest breathe. And so if you can practice breathing deeply into your abdomen, release those muscles. And especially as we get older, we want to look at the wedding. We want to look at the high school reunion. So we suck it in to make our pants fit better. You need to relax those muscles, take a big belly breath. And so you can get air into the bottom of the lungs. This brain of ours takes 20% of the oxygen we breathe in. So if you're only upper chest breathing and getting that little bit of oxygen into the upper part of your chest, you're depriving your brain of a lot of nutrients and fuel and oxygen. So if you can get a deep breath, you can literally fuel your brain for rational, calm thinking. The other real quick thing about deep breathing is, of course, we have all these nerves coming out of the back of our head. It's that thing when you touch a hot pot, a signal goes up your nerve to your brain.
Mhm.
It says, hey, you're touching a hot pot, let it go. It goes back down, you let it go. Well, we have the 10th cranial nerve, which is the vagus nerve. A lot has been written about the vagus nerve over the last decade or so. But the vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the relaxation response. The sympathetic nervous system is the stress response, the fight or flight stress response. The parasympathetic is the relaxation response. The vagus nerve is a big part of that. It's attached to your lungs. Breathing deeply and slowly, gently, smoothly will stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore activate the parasympathetic nervous system. It's not hard, but this only works if you do it. And so whatever the routine is you need to get yourself in state, if that's slow, deep breathing, if that's, going on a walk or around the building before you do, if that's pumping your fists in the air and running out on stage like Tony Robbins, find the thing that works for you. Practice, practice, practice your speech. And if you need to grab people, you need to get your friends from the office. If you need to get family, if you need to hire the theater director at your regional theater group, whatever you need to do to practice that speech. And that also will instill the confidence. You can't find the confidence, pretend you have it, imagine you have it, recall a time in the past, whether it was last week, last month, 40 years ago, when you felt confident at something. Feel it in your body, expand it, make it bigger, and then see yourself giving that speech. And you practice that, it'll literally wire that into your brain, into your nervous system.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Craig, that's fascinating. Now, before I ask you my final question,
Yep.
that I ask everybody, I want to tell people that they have an opportunity to download your 5 free recordings to program yourself for
Mm.
confidence. And then also you created an ACE any
Yeah,
test,
ACT test.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we will put that link, and also we will put all the links in the show notes so that
Brilliant.
everyone can find you and connect with you.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, just my website, acnetest.com, it'll pop up after a few seconds, say, hey, download these recordings if you want them. But also if you go up to the menu bar and you'll see something that says program yourself for confidence, and you can get those recordings. That's just for you to have, that's for you to share. And just
mhm.
recordings to help you program more confidence in your life.
Amazing. Yes. And
Yeah.
so people can, the first website, you can go to aceanytest.com, guys. That's super easy.
Yeah.
And then we will put all the social links and other links in the show notes. So now, Craig, I would love for you to imagine that you
Mm.
are on a stage and everyone's listening
Mhm.
to you, and you've got 60 seconds. So you've got 1 minute to say something to the world, something really important. What will you say?
What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better at. Of course, we know this from playing piano or riding a bicycle or learning foreign language, learning dance, learning martial arts. But what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anger? You're going to get really good at it. You're literally going to wire that into your brain, into your nervous system. So notice what you're practicing and then practice something that's going to create your best life. Practice confidence, practice joy, practice happiness. You can have it and you can literally start wiring it into your system. You don't feel confident, you don't feel joyful. Imagine yourself, pretend
Mhm.
yourself, just like those piano players, and it'll literally start rewiring your brain.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you. I
yeah.
don't remember people really focusing on like, think what you practice. Because sometimes we do practice
Mm.
negative things.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah.
do it over again and then rewire our brain. Thank you. This has been
Mm. Oh
amazing.
yeah, it's fun.
I loved
Yeah.
listening to you. And for you, dear friends, again, you will go and find all the links to connect with Craig in the show notes. And remember, you have a message in your heart. So go out there into the world, share it, and always, always speak with power.